my name is Wendy Weather. I am the History Drag Queen, and let's honestly get into this. Let's talk about the Duke of Portland. So not terribly long ago, I actually was just browsing on Pinterest, just as one does. I was looking at historical home decor vibes, kind of like inspiration. And I came across this image. And for a second, I really didn't think anything of it, but then I started looking at it just a little bit longer, and I was like, is it AI generated? Something just seems a little off about this photo. And the photo almost looks kind of like a liminal space. It seems interesting, but also eerie. Something seems a little off. And because I'm just naturally curious. I'm like, what is this? Is this an actual daguerreotype photo? What is this photo? And so I did a little Google search. And when I tell you, this led me on a rabbit hole for days. And that was the mystery of the Duke of Portland. But first, let's set the scene here. It's literally 1800, the beginning of the century. The man by the name of William John Cavendish-Scott-Bentinck, I know that's a lot, was actually born in 1800 in London to a Henrietta Scott and William Bentinck, who was the 4th Duke of Portland. And before we can get really confusing, William Bentinck is the 4th Duke of Portland, but we're going to call his son, William John, just John. It's just going to be John. And John actually was one of 9 children. And as a child, John actually kind of had a frail, demeanor, kind of I'm a sickly Victorian child, it was giving that. And to preface this, John was not the heir to the Duke of Portland. It was actually his older brother. And so, John grew up, and when he turned 18, he actually went into the military. And that didn't actually really go super awesome for him. He kind of battled through lethargicness and his delicate health. It was just not a great time, and it kind of was said, okay, this really isn't gonna work. Thanks, but no thanks, And to flashback, his father, William, the 4th Duke of Portland, had a huge political kind of life. It was pretty boring though, nothing crazy. But he held this important Tory MP seat or whatever. I believe it was called the Marquis of Titchfield, and it's this kind of, it's a family seat. It's a little bit of not a cabinet type of feeling, but it's a ye old, this is our family's head of whatever. And I'm not really going to get into logistics of the British politics and stuff, because that is not the importance of this video at all, whatsoever. Anyway, that's what his father's title was. And his title was going to go to his older brother. Well, his older brother actually passes away. And so John is now the, meek, frail John is the one that is thrust into this seat he wants nothing to do with. So he inherits the seat. He also inherits his father's huge estate. And when I say huge, baby, I'm talking this place is massive. Humongous. There's dozens upon dozens of rooms, bathrooms. This place is massive. And so John actually, he only held that seat for 2 years. He actually gave up his seat, but not, the crazy estate and whatever, to his uncle. And so John just kind of really lived his life as the Duke of Portland. And one of the many things John liked to do, he actually liked the opera. A man of the arts, as you will. It's also said that John actually liked to hunt. He was a really good hunter as well. And was the guy to pick out all the horses. That is a good horse, He was an enigma of a person, right? But anyway, he loved the opera, and he actually kind of fell in love with this opera singer named Adelaide. And he actually kind of proposed himself to her, and she was like, I am so sorry, bro. Oh, no, ma'am. She completely turned him down. And that, you guys, is only just the start of the Duke of Portland. And so John, who was already super introverted, very, very shy, kind of super, super sensitive, you know, a very frail kind of, you know, demeanor of a man, that rejection made him spiral into the most unique life that has ever been in a history book. He first became reclusive and kind of diminished himself to only living in 5 rooms of his entire estate. Just 5. Just 5. And he could only be seen by one person, his personal valet. Like, the man wouldn't even see his doctor when he got sick. His doctor would just come to his door and he would just shout kind of his symptoms through the door crack to the doctor. And he only gave his staff instructions via mail or notes. He also had 2 letterboxes or mailboxes posted outside of his rooms, one for outgoing mail, one for ingoing mail. It's a little weird, okay. It seems kind of efficient, but not as strange, okay. And he only really maintained any of his friendships or like extended family relationships by letters. And okay, so we're stacking up. He just is very rejected from this girl he thought he loved, you know. He's just real hurt and he's just being weird and kind of emo about it, right? Okay, awesome. And then his staff were kind of under strict orders to never acknowledge his presence, that he even existed, or like he was there. They were like, okay, that's so weird. Like, oh, all right. And John never, ever would leave his rooms unless it was for one of his walks. John would only go outside at night. John took these like nocturnal walks with one of his staff members, but his staff member was a woman who was instructed to hold a lantern and walk 50 feet in front of him. She honestly was probably like, whatever, it's a check. And if John was ever pressed to go outside during the day for any reason at all, he would only do so wearing 2 huge overcoats, a huge tall hat, and always have an umbrella with him so he could hide behind it if anybody tried to talk to him. Honestly, that's just giving social anxiety, and I get it. And if John ever needed to go to his house in London for like meetings or like anything like that, like business stuff, he would take he would get in the carriage almost up to the door of his house, get in the carriage from there. The carriage would then drive all the way up to the train for him to get onto the train. Like, he was not exposed to any type of like daylight person anywhere unless it was absolutely 1,010,100,000,000% necessary. And like, even if it was for something super important, like, hey, we need you to sign this, we need to have it notarized or anything like that, he's like, just slip it under the door, I'll sign it. I don't have to see you. I'm like, honestly, that's valid, super valid. But John didn't just like sit in his like estate or his room or like doing everything and like just nothing. He actually had a really weird obsession with renovating and doing projects on his estate. The estate's name is actually named Welbeck Abbey, just so you know. So he was super, super into just renovating Welbeck Abbey, just like doing construction things and like just renovating it, just cuz. And he poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into doing all these renovations. One of them, he actually like drew up plans to make like a 22-acre kitchen, just a kitchen that's 22 acres. And they were like, no, bro. But then he was like, okay, well, I'll just make like a roller rink for the staff, like in the estate. And he was like, what? What? Honestly, if your boss made you a roller rink just to like have fun at work, honestly, and the staff were like, we're under strict orders, we cannot see, talk to him or anything, do nothing. He's just giving us fun stuff to do. Okay. He also stripped his entire estate from the furniture, like took all the furniture out and just painted all of it pink. Just with no furniture, just pink rooms. And now you could be seeing this image and why it kind of looks a little odd. Well, that image actually isn't from Welbeck Abbey. Kind of, but technically not. It's from his hugest renovation project he ever did on his estate. So the Duke of Portland, which is now kind of dubbed like the Prince of Silence and like just is known to be an extreme recluse to a point where it's just absolutely incredibly insane, started to build tunnels under his huge, elaborate estate. Massive labyrinths of tunnels under his estate. And not only that, he's building another estate under his estate that is connected to all these tunnels. I mean, at this point, he's just playing The Sims. And he's just, doing as we all do when we play The Sims. Just doing a little underground moment, a little below ground moment. And these tunnels all connected various different places in his estate. Also, he built tunnels that went all the way to the train station underground. All the way. That's a little crazy. And just to give you kind of guesstimation of how big these tunnels are, these are some images and some depictions. Literally, you could run carriages through them. Almost side, some of them were so wide, you could have them go side by side. It's insane. He also had mine carts and tracks installed in the tunnels. So if you needed dinner or something like that, they would just send it through the tracks or just what? And part of me is that's just kind of dope. Just to have what? That's so crazy. And from his underground estate, he actually constructed a ballroom, a library, an observatory. The observatory had a glass ceiling underground. And some of the tunnels actually had glass ceilings that would let some of the light in. And I'm like, okay, but he doesn't really like light and being outside. It's giving odd. It's just a little contradictory. And another room he built was a picture gallery. And that, my friends, is actually the original image that I had stumbled upon on Pinterest. And also, just to kind of preface, all of these tunnels and rooms, they were painted pink. I don't know, maybe that was just his favorite color, or maybe that was Adelaide, the girl who shot him down's favorite color. I don't know. But girly pop loved pink. I mean, that's fine. He also had this elaborate system of gas lighting and stuff throughout all of the tunnels in the underground estate. He also tried to build a tunnel underneath a lake that was on his estate. That project he actually had to abandon because it wasn't just possible, and it was actually just not feasible. And it's never really been confirmed or explained of why he was doing all this. It's the biggest mystery ever. Why he was so reclusive. Why he did all these weird, very weird things. Painting all of his rooms in his estate pink. Taking all of the furniture out of them and just being a pink room with no drapes, just pink walls. And his staff were never to acknowledge his presence, always turn away from him if he was ever walking down a hallway for some reason, and just never acknowledge him. And the only person that could see him was his personal valet. He then builds all these elaborate tunnels under his estate, and an exact almost copy of his estate under the ground. Okay. And John just kind of lived his life like that, just doing these renos, being super reclusive, almost never going outside. And as he just kind of, gone on in years, he became even more reclusive. He actually only stayed in the underground tunnels in his specific rooms that he built for himself. And by 1879, John was 79 years old, and his entire estate kind of fell beyond repair. He's an old man, can't really keep up with stuff. It's the entire state is like almost in shambles to where it's like, probably should have been condemned, girl. Like, it's bad. And the only actual habitable places in the estate were actually John's rooms that he had built underground. He also, when he was older, he would only eat roast chicken. Like, he had a rule that he would only have roast chicken. He needed roast chicken being cooked 24/7. Like, no matter what day or time, there is a roast chicken cooking, and they would just send it to him on these little heated, like, truck carts down the tracks in the tunnels. Like, he would... What? And, like, I guess you could be funny and kind of say, like, oh, he's goals. Like, I get that. But also, he lived, like, almost, like, maybe 58 years of his entire life almost in total seclusion. Like, only really saw his personal valet. Like, never saw another human. Like, that's great. And, not going outside. Stuff like that actually scientifically does stuff to your brain's, like, chemistry and, like your brain's psychology. And I just am very curious of why any of this even happened. And no one is actually going to get that answer because John dies when he's 79. And his estate kind of fell to his cousin. And when his cousin kind of discovered all this, he was like, what in the heck? But then there was also a certain amount of admiration he had for him and, like, this weird, eccentric, reclusive life that his cousin had. And he was like, okay. And so he renovated some of the rooms and actually made it into a little bit of a museum for his, like, for John and his, like, weird life. And you can actually go see it and visit it. But there's this huge overarching mystery of WTF. Girl, what? Hey, bud, what? You know, like, huh? So let's kind of go down some theories that I kind of, like, drew up while I was going down this rabbit hole and researching all of this. So my first theory that seems the most logical to me is that John was on some type of spectrum. Logically, to me, that makes sense. That he has some type of, like, mental, like, spectral, like, tism or something that, you know, his brain just works differently than other people's, and that's just what he does and what he wants. Because he was so fixated on roast chicken for, like, decades. Like, what? Huh? And I get it. And as someone who also is on the spectrum, like, I can get some of these things, but some of them are a little crazy. And I think maybe that's the most logical explanation in my mind of why he did most of this. My second theory is he actually suffered from solar urticaria, which in layman's terms is being allergic to the sun. Or, you know, having a sensitivity to sunlight to, it's almost a very severe allergic reaction. But that was shot down almost immediately whenever he built glass ceilings for the tunnels to let light in. Okay, that is not the answer. And my last theory is he was just really emo. Like, super, super emo. Like, to a point where it's like, okay, girl, calm down. Because my mind kept going back to Adelaide. There's something in that story that is not either told to us or, like, it's not really fleshed out. There's something a little off. Like, he either, like, something had to have happened. I think maybe Adelaide's, like, rejection of him really honestly sent him into an absolute spiral of his entire life. Which I feel like is a little wild, it's a little crazy, but I mean, it does happen to people. Maybe that's why the walls were pink. Maybe it was Adelaide's favorite color. Or maybe it was John's favorite color or their favorite color. I don't know. But maybe he was just super, super emo and just didn't want to, like, talk to people after Adelaide. Just, I don't know. What do you guys think? Honestly, my logical, like, brain is like, he had some type of tism. Of some point, something. Because it would explain almost every single one of his behaviors. Almost every single one of them. And honestly, I really can't see any other theory than that. I can't. And some of the other theories, like medical theories, like those are really kind of shot. Like some of them are like disproven from parts of his behavior. And the Adelaide thing, I don't know. I really don't know if somebody actually could do that. I mean, humans are crazy. We could, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Put in the comments, type in your theories. Would you do some of this? Because honestly, if I had the ability to build tunnels, I'd just do it. Because who wouldn't want a secret passage tunnel in their house? I mean, honestly, come on. And that, you guys, is the mystery of the Duke of Portland. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on all social medias. What history topic should I go even more in depth on a longer format?